They were the most dangerous women of World War II. Spies, assassins, saboteurs. They seduced, deceived and killed to bring down the Nazi war machine. Virginia Hall, the limping lady, outwitted the Gestapo with a wooden leg and iron whip. Nancy Wake, the white mouse, took out Nazis with her bare hands. Mata Hari charmed her way into military secrets, while Noor Inayat Khan died, whispering liberté. These women were invisible warriors, underestimated but unstoppable. This is their story.
Welcome to the Unveiled History.
Virginia Hall was one of the bravest spies in history, but before that, she was just looking for a way to help. In 1940, she became an ambulance driver for the French army, rushing through battlefields to save the wounded. When France fell to the Germans, she had to escape. That's when she met a British officer who saw her courage and helped her to become a spy. By 1941, Virginia joined the Special Operations Executive, SOE, and went undercover in France as a reporter for the New York Post. The disguised let her gather secrets and pass them to the Allies. She became a master of disguises, tricking the enemy, keeping her fellow spies safe. She even built a spy network called Heckler. One of her most daring missions was rescuing British pilots who had been shot down. She set up a secret code. Pilots who reached Lyon were to say they were a friend of Oliver, which meant Virginia would help them escape. Even a brothel owner joined her mission, hiding and feeding the pilots before they were smuggled to safety. People in France called her the Limping Lady because she had a wooden leg from an old accident, but to the Nazis she was one of the most dangerous spies. In 1942, she helped 12 SOE agents escape from a Nazi prison by sneaking in tools hidden in sardine cans. It was one of the most successful prison breaks of the war. But danger was closing in. The Nazis were about to take full control of France, and Virginia had to run. She hiked 50 miles over the freezing Pyrenees Mountains into Spain, a journey that took 2 days. When she made it back to England, she was secretly awarded the Order of the British Empire for her bravery. After the war, Virginia fell in love with Paul Guillot, a fellow spy. They spent their lives together, and she passed away in 1982. Nancy Wake was one of the bravest spies of World War II. Born in New Zealand in 1912, she grew up in Australia but longed for adventure. At 16, she ran away from home, worked as a nurse, and later moved to Paris to become a journalist. In the 1930s, she saw the rise of the Nazis and knew she had to fight back. After marrying a Frenchman, Henry Fiotcha, in 1939, she joined the French resistance, helping Allied soldiers and Jewish refugees escape. When the Nazis discovered her, she fled through the Pyrenees Mountains and made it to England in 1943. Trained as a secret agent, she parachuted back into France in 1944 to help organise the resistance before D-Day. She led daring missions, fought the Nazis, and even once killed a German soldier with her bare hands. After the war, she learned that her husband had been executed by the Gestapo. Honoured by Britain, France, and the US, she later tried and failed to enter Australian politics. In 1957, she married RAF officer John Forward and eventually retired in Australia. After his death in 1997, she moved to England, where she lived until she passed away. Nancy Wake was awarded some of the highest military honours for her bravery. Her medals are displayed at the Australian War Memorial, a tribute to the fearless woman the Nazis once called the White Mouse, because they could never catch her. Margareta Zell was born into a rich family. Her father sold fancy hats, and life was good until he lost all of their money. things got even worse when her parents divorced and her mother passed away. After that, Margarita had to live with relatives. She wanted to be a teacher and went to college in Leiden, but her life took a different turn when she married a Dutch army officer, Captain Rudolf MacLeod, in 1895. They moved to the islands of Java and Sumatra, far away from Europe. Sadly, their marriage was full of trouble. Rudolf was said to be abusive, and he even gave Margareta a terrible disease called syphilis. The couple had 2 children, but the son died under mysterious circumstances. Some say he was poisoned by a nanny, others say he got sick from a treatment for syphilis. When they moved back to Europe, Margarita and Rudolf separated and divorced in 1906. She wanted to raise their daughter, but Rudolf refused to help her with money. Heartbroken and desperate, she had no choice but to leave her daughter in his care. Margarita needed money, so she reinvented herself. In 1905, she became a dancer in Paris, calling herself Matahari, which means Eye of the Day in Malay. She performed beautiful, exotic dances and became famous for her daring performances. Tall, charming, and mysterious, she caught the attention of rich and powerful men, especially military officers. Many of them gave her gifts and money. But while she dazzled audiences, a darker story was unfolding. During World War I, countries were spying on each other, and Matahari found herself caught in the middle. Some say a German official offered to pay her information while she was travelling. Others claim she later agreed to spy for France but never told them about her German connection. In 1917, the French accused Matahari of being a double agent, someone who worked for both sides. They blamed her for the deaths of 50,000 French soldiers, even though there was no solid proof. She was arrested, put on trial, and sentenced to death. On October 15, 1917, Matahari faced a firing squad. Some say she refused to wear a blindfold and stared bravely at the soldiers. Others claim she even blew them a kiss before they fired. In 1940, Andrée Peel was running a beauty salon in Brest when Germany took over France. But instead of staying quiet, she fought back. She hid escaping soldiers, gave them new clothes, and spread secret news against the Nazis. Inspired by General de Gaulle's words, she joined the resistance, leading a team that passed information to the Allies and guided planes to secret landing spots at night. Known as Agent Rose, she saved 102 Allied pilots, helping them escape to safety. But her courage came at a cost. When a captured ally revealed her name, Andrée fled to Paris, but the Gestapo found her. After D-Day, she was arrested and tortured. They nearly drowned her and beat her so badly that she suffered pain for the rest of her life, but she never gave up any secrets. The Nazis sent her to Ravensbrück, a brutal concentration camp. The moment she arrived, she was marched into a gas chamber, yet, for some unknown reason, she was let go. Later, she nearly died from meningitis, but somehow survived. One day, during roll call, her number was chosen for execution, but a brave prisoner hid the paper, saving her life. She was moved to Buchenwald, where things got even worse. As the war neared its end, the Nazis began killing prisoners to hide their crimes. Andrée was in the firing line when, at the last second, American troops stormed in and freed the camp. After the war, Andrée Peel was honoured with many medals for her bravery. She moved to England and lived a long life, passing away at 105. During World War II, Sophie Scholl and her brother Hans refused to stay silent against the Nazis. Hans, once a member of the Hitler Youth, began questioning Nazi ideas and, along with his friends Alexander Schmorell, Willy Graf and Jürgen Wittgenstein, started a secret resistance group called the White Rose. They wrote and secretly spread leaflets calling for Germans to resist Hitler's rule. In February 1943, Sophie and Hans took a suitcase full of leaflets to Munich University. leaving them in hallways for students to find. Before leaving, Sophie boldly threw the last of them from a high balcony, letting them flutter down like snow. But a Nazi janitor saw her and reported them. The Gestapo arrested Hans and Sophie, later capturing their friend Christoph Probst as well. Under brutal questioning, Sophie took full responsibility to protect others. When they were put on trial, Sophie fearlessly declared, "Somebody had to make a start." The Nazi court quickly sentenced them to death for treason. Just hours later, on February 22nd, 1943, Sophie, Hans and Christoph were beheaded by guillotine. Sophie was only 21 years old. Hannie Schaft started small in the Dutch resistance, stealing ID cards to help Jewish friends escape, but she wanted to do more. She joined the Council of Resistance and took on dangerous missions, sabotaging Nazi plans, gathering intelligence, and even assassinating enemies. She became so feared that the Nazis put her on their most wanted list, calling her the girl with the red hair. In 1944, during an attack on a Nazi collaborator, Hannie's partner was wounded and arrested. Under pressure, he revealed her name. To force her surrender, the Nazis arrested her parents. Heartbroken, she briefly stopped fighting, but after they were released, she dyed her hair black and returned to action, destroying Nazi targets, transporting weapons, and spreading secret newspapers. In March 1945, just weeks before the war's end, Hannie was caught at a Nazi checkpoint. Even after torture and solitary confinement, she refused to talk. But when her red hair started growing back, her captors knew who she was. On April 17, 1945, she was taken to the dunes of Overheen to be executed. When the first bullet only grazed her, she stared down her killers and said, "I shoot better," before they fired the final shot. Hannie Schaft was just 24 years old, but her fearless fight for justice made her a legend in Dutch history. Noor Inayat Khan was born on January 1st, 1914 in a monastery near the Kremlin in Moscow. Her father, Hazrat Inayat Khan, was a Sufi musician from India, and her mother, Aura Ray Baker, was American. Their home was filled with music, meditation, and love, but tragedy struck when her father died, and at just 13 years old, she took care of her family, finding comfort in writing poems and stories. As she grew, Noor became a talented writer and musician, publishing children's stories in newspapers. But when World War II broke out, she knew she had to help. Even though she believed in peace, she and her brother Inayat decided to fight against the Nazis. Noor joined the Women's Auxiliary Force as a radio operator, but her skills caught the attention of the Special Operations Executive, a secret group helping the French resistance. Noor became a spy. She trained in weapons, codes, disguises, and survival skills. Given the codename Madeleine, she was sent on a secret mission to Nazi-occupied France in June 1943. There, she became the only radio operator in Paris sending messages to London, risking her life every day. She constantly changed locations, disguised herself, and outsmarted the Gestapo. She even tricked Nazi officers by pretending her radio was a movie camera. Most spies were caught within 6 weeks, but Noor survived for 3 months, which was a remarkable achievement. But betrayal came. In October 1943, a woman she trusted sold her address to the Nazis. Noor was captured, beaten, and tortured at Gestapo headquarters. She tried to escape twice, but was caught. The Nazis labelled her highly dangerous and sent her to Sorheim prison, where she spent 10 months in chains, refusing to reveal any secrets. On September 11, 1944, Noor was taken to the Dachau concentration camp. After a night of brutal torture, she was forced to kneel and shot in the head. Her last word was liberté, which means freedom. She was only 30 years old. After the war, Noor was awarded Francis Croix de Guerre and Britain's George Cross, some of the highest honours. Today, she is remembered as Madeline, the fearless spy who gave everything for freedom. So, what do you think about these women? Let's hear your thoughts in the comment section, and don't forget to subscribe and like the video.